The edge of known spac, the stars were thin here. Not the crowded seas of light humanity had grown used to, but a quiet ocean. Black, endless, silent. The ship Ardent Horizon drifted toward the barrier. Not a wall, not a shield, not anything natural, but something older. Something left behind by whoever built the galaxy before any species alive now walked it. Captain Elias Rourke sat at the forward viewport, jaw tight, scar pulling along his cheek when he clenched his teeth. He was human, older than most captains still daring to explore, ex-soldier, ex-smuggler, and now a man crazy enough to try what no one had ever done, pierce the galactic barrier. Behind him, the crew whispered. Aliens and humans both. Mostly aliens. Some doubted, some prayed. Some cursed his name under their breath. Beside him stood Lyrics, tall and slender, a being of crystalline skin that caught the starlight like glass filled with fire. A voice smooth and musical came from her chest, resonating rather than speaking. "You still mean to do this, Rourke?" Lyrics asked. "Every record says ships vanish at the barrier. They don't break. They don't burn. They simply cease." Rourke didn't look away from the void. Records are written by the ones who never tried hard enough. Lyrics tilted. Her head, crystalline plates shifting faintly. Or by the ones who died trying. That silence settled heavy over the bridge. The barrier was visible now. Not a wall of light, but distortion. Like the way heat bends air above sand dunes. The stars behind it blurred, stretched, and twisted as though something massive pressed. Against the universe itself, no one knew who built it. The aliens called it the last line. Humans, in their stubborn way, called it the wall. It wrapped the galaxy like a chain, with only one truth agreed upon by every species. Nothing that crossed. It ever returned. Rourke's voice was low, steady. "Helm, take us forward." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crew. One alien pilot, skin slick with scales, hissed through his teeth. "Captain, with respect, no one crosses. If we push, we lose the ship and our lives." "That's why we're here," Rourke said. "Humanity's always broken walls. This one's no different." The ship vibrated as it moved closer. Lights flickered. Power cells strained. The distortion filled the view, swirling, bending, threatening. It wasn't just physics. It felt alive. The barrier whispered. Not words, but pressure. A weight against the mind, as though thought itself was unwelcome here. Several aliens groaned, clutching their skulls. Rourke forced his breath steady. He'd fought wars. He'd seen men die with their insides turned out. This wasn't fear. It was challenge. "Hold course," he ordered. The distortion expanded. Screens glitched. The hull groaned like a beast in pain. One by one, instruments went dark. Shields collapsing. Lyrics warned, voice still calm but tinted with unease. The alien pilot shouted, "We'll be torn apart." "No," Rourke said. "We'll break through." The barrier swallowed them whole. Darkness. Not black, not void. The absence of stars. The absence of time. The crew gasped, their voices muffled, distant, as though sound itself resisted existing here. For a moment, Ardent Horizon hung on the edge of nothingness. Then, with a soundless shatter, the ship burst through. On the other side was a sky no one had ever seen. The stars were wrong, thicker, brighter, older. Planets hung like shattered gems. And in the distance, vast shapes moved. Not ships, not worlds. Shapes too large, too slow. Living, the crew froze. Lyrics whispered. "By the core, what have you done, Elias Rourke?" Rourke leaned forward, breath tight in his throat. Because ahead of them, hanging in the void, was something that turned even his blood cold. It wasn't a star. It wasn't a planet. It was a construct, bigger than anything humans had ever built. A city the size of a moon, glowing faintly, waiting. For them dot, and then it moved. Asterisk, the first Suintendent bridge of the ardent horizon was drowning in silence. Not silence of the ears, but silence of the mind. The alien fleet surrounded them, their ships black as obsidian and sleek as blades. They glowed faintly with lines of liquid light running across their hulls, like veins carrying fire. Rourke stood tall at the viewport, even as his knees wanted to buckle. The voice was still echoing in his skull. It wasn't sound. It wasn't thought. It was intrusion. Who breaks the chain? The words had weight. They weren't simply spoken. They pressed. Every syllable felt like gravity, crushing. The mind from within. Crew members collapsed in their chairs. The reptilian pilot hissed in pain, claws gouging deep scratches into the controls. Lyrix's crystalline body pulsed with uneven light, like a lantern about to shatter. Rourke gritted his teeth. He had endured worse. War camps, enemy interrogation machines, the endless silence of losing men under his command. This was pain. But pain could be resisted. He forced his thoughts outward, biting down against the pressure. We are explorers. We come in peace. We mean no harm. The voice pulsed again. All who come through the chain mean harm. All who pierce it carry corruption. None may enter. None may leave. The ships around them shifted. Perfect formation. No hesitation, no confusion. Machines couldn't fly this sharp. These were alive. Living ships. Energy swelled at their bows. The alien weapons didn't glow with fire like human railguns or plasma batteries. They bent the void itself, twisting space until it shrieked. "Captain!" The pilot cried, scales rattling with fear. "They're charging weapons." The crew broke into chaos. Panels flickered red. Alarms screamed. A technician shouted, "Shields won't hold." "Not against that." Rourke stayed calm. "Stay steady." Lyrix turned her glowing gaze toward him, voice shaking like a cracked chime. "Elias, we are nothing to them. Ants beneath a hammer. They will crush us for daring to cross." Rourke's lips pulled into a grim smile. "Then we don't let the hammer fall." The first alien shot fired. It wasn't a beam, wasn't a missile. It was a distortion wave, a spear of bent reality. It hit Ardent Horizon's shields and ripped them apart like paper. Consoles exploded in sparks. The ship shook so violently, half the crew slammed to the floor. A second shot came. Then a third. Shields. "Gone," the technician screamed. Hull integrity collapsing. "Evasive." Rourke barked. The pilot's hands flew. Engines roared. The ship twisted, weaving between the spears of bending space. Each near hit twisted the hull like metal being torn apart. Another impact. The aft plating split. Air vented in a sudden scream. Before bulkheads sealed, Lyrix clung to her station, light trembling through her crystal skin. "We cannot win this fight." Rourke's mind raced. He knew she was right. But survival had never come from strength. It came from daring. "Divert auxiliary power to the forward coils," he snapped. The technician hesitated. "Captain, that's—" "Do it." The crew obeyed. Lights dimmed across the bridge. The engines faltered. For a heartbeat, the ship floated dead in space. The alien fleet closed in, their weapons charging for the final strike. Rourke slammed his fist on the console. "Now, burn it all into the jump drive." The pilot's eyes widened. "But, sir, do IT?" With a scream of straining metal, the Ardent Horizon ignited. The jump coils flared white-hot, designed for interstellar hops, never for combat. Energy surged forward, and the ship lurched. Not a jump, not a proper one, but a desperate shove. The vessel flung itself sideways, skipping like a stone across the surface of space, The alien blasts missed, tearing only empty void. The ardent. Horizon spun violently, hull screaming, alarms wailing. The crew clung to their stations, eyes wide with terror. When the ship stabilized, they found themselves behind the encircling fleet. A murmur of disbelief swept the bridge. We moved through their formation, the pilot whispered, trembling. They couldn't track it. Lyric's voice rang like a brittle bell. What did you do, Elias? Rourke exhaled, sweat dripping down his temple. Humans don't outrun hammers. We duck. The alien ships wheeled, reorienting with terrifying precision. They weren't confused for long. The fleet spread again, cutting off every escape vector. But in the chaos of their maneuver, one thing had revealed itself not far in the distance. Within the city-sized construct, a vast aperture had begun to open. A gate, a maw, and inside it burned more light than any star Rourke had ever seen. The aliens weren't simply trying to destroy them. They were trying to drive them into that gate. Lyric's glow dimmed in fear. That is not an exit. It is a prison. The alien voice thundered again, louder, crushing thought. The trespasser is claimed. The trespasser belongs to the chain. Dozens of ships surged forward. Ardent Horizon had no power left for another desperate move. The coils smoked. The engines sputtered. The crew looked to Rourke. Some begged silently. Some simply stared, awaiting. Their fate, Rourke's jaw set. His hand gripped the console so tight his knuckles cracked. They weren't done. Not yet. Helm, he growled. Point us at the gate. The pilot froze. Captain, if we go in there, we may never come out. Rourke's eyes burned like iron. If we don't, we're dead anyway. Better to know what's inside than get torn apart out here. Lyric stared at him, voice trembling. You would choose the prison? He gave her the ghost of a smile. Prison can be escaped. A grave can't. The crew hesitated only a moment longer. Then the pilot obeyed. The ardent horizon turned, engines coughing fire, and plunged straight into the light. The alien fleet did not follow. They didn't need to, because once the ship crossed the threshold, the gate snapped shut behind them. And the universe went black. Asterisk. The battle in the silent expanse, the universe dissolved into light. The ardent horizon tumbled through a tunnel of shifting brilliance, streams of energy cascading like rivers, stars bending and breaking into fractured shards. The ship groaned, as though the very fabric of its hull protested being here. Then, suddenly, the storm ended. Darkness returned, but it wasn't the familiar black of space. This was thicker, heavier. The void here was wrong. Even the stars beyond felt muted, as if something smothered their light. The crew staggered to their feet. Panels sparked. The hum of the engines was low and wounded. Report, Rourke barked, voice firm though his chest burned with tension. Engines at 20%, the technician croaked. Hull breaches sealed by emergency bulkheads. Shields gone. Weapons down to single battery. The reptilian pilot spat blood from a cut across his snout. We are crippled, Captain. If they come for us again, we cannot fight. Lyric steadied herself, crystalline hands clutching the edge of her console. The glow in her body was faint now, like embers cooling. Elias, look. Ahead of them stretched a vast expanse. Not space, not vacuum. It was a sea, a field of shifting matter hung in the void, luminous, flowing, like a living ocean suspended in the dark. Islands of stone and twisted wreckage floated within it. And deeper still, shadows moved. Shapes vast and slow, bigger than mountains, gliding through the glowing tide. The ship's lights caught one of the floating hulks. The crew gasped. It was a vessel, or had been. Enormous, jagged, alien in design. Its hull was torn open, gutted. and lifeless, drifting like a carcass dot, the technician whispered, voice trembling. That ship is older than anything in the galactic records. Dozens more shapes emerged in the distance. Hulks, wrecks, derelicts of species unrecognizable. Ships from ages past, entombed in this silent ocean, the silent expanse. A graveyard. Realization struck them all at once. Every ship that had ever tried to breach the barrier had ended up here. Lyrix's glow flickered weakly. This is no prison. It is a tomb. Before Rourke could answer, the sea began to stir. The shadows within it turned. Slowly, enormous, intentional dot, and then the sea rose. A tendril of luminous matter arched upward, bending like liquid, but moving with purpose. It reached toward the ardent horizon, shimmering with energy. The pilot hissed. Contact! It's alive! The tendril lashed forward, evasive. Rourke roared. The crippled ship shuddered, thrusters coughing flame. The tendril missed, striking past them, but where it touched, space itself rippled, glowing like molten glass. Another tendril rose, then another. The sea was no longer still. The entire expanse was awakening. Captain! Lyrix's voice rang sharp with fear. The wrecks, look! The derelicts were shifting, not drifting with the tide, moving, caught, pulled down into the luminous sea as the tendrils wrapped them, crushing metal like paper, dragging the carcasses beneath. The surface, the crew's fear turned to horror. That wasn't just an ocean. It was feeding. The pilot's scales rattled in panic. We must flee, now, Rourke's mind raced. They couldn't outrun it. Engines were too weak. Weapons too few. But humans had never survived by being stronger. Only by being clever. Divert all auxiliary to the thrusters, he snapped. Technician stammered. But sir, life support will do it. The crew obeyed, fear sharpening into frantic action. Lights dimmed across the bridge. Oxygen scrubbers slowed. The ship lurched forward, pushing through the thick void. But the sea was faster. Tendrils lashed, striking from every angle. One smashed the hull. Metal screamed. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring. Hull breach, Sector 7. Another tendril coiled, wrapping around the aft plating. The ship slowed, dragged backward toward. The glowing sea, crew screamed. Panic flooded the bridge. Rourke grabbed the comms. Engineering, vent the aft. What? Captain, there are crew down there. His jaw clenched. He hated this. Hated it with every fiber. But if they hesitated, everyone would die. Now, the order went through. Bulkheads slammed shut. A moment later, the aft section blew, venting atmosphere, crew, and the coiled tendril into the void. The ardent horizon lurched free. Silence fell across the bridge, heavy with grief. Lyrix's glow dimmed almost to nothing. Elias. You. Damn them. His voice was iron. I saved the rest of us. No one argued. Not because they agreed, but because they couldn't afford to waste breath. The ship pushed harder, limping, weaving between the rising tendrils. Each one that struck sent shockwaves through the hull. Then, ahead, the void warped. A gate, smaller than the one they'd entered through, but similar. A swirling aperture of light. The crew gasped with desperate hope. An exit, but Lyrix's voice was hollow. No, not an exit, a mouth. The sea surged, driving them toward it. From the gate came something worse. A shape emerged, vast, angular, alive. A ship, but not like the others. Sleek, towering, bristling with energy. The alien fleet had returned. The voice thundered through their skulls once more. The trespasser is claimed. The trespasser must be judged. Energy flared across the alien vessel. Its weapons lit like suns. Ardent horizon had no shields. No strength. Rourke's voice was steel. Arm the last battery, the technician stammered. Captain, a single battery cannot. Doesn't matter. Fire. The weapon discharged. A lance of plasma screamed across the void. Striking the alien hull, the beam splashed harmlessly against its shields. The alien ship answered. A single blast struck the ardent horizon, tearing through its side. Consoles erupted in fire. Crew screamed. The ship spiraled, crippled. Alarms howled. Bulkheads collapsed. Smoke filled the bridge. Lyrics clung to the console. Her crystalline form cracked, light bleeding from within. We are finished. Rourke staggered through the chaos. Smoke burning his lungs, blood dripping down his temple. His hand slammed onto the pilot's shoulder. Point us at the alien ship, he growled. The pilot's eyes widened. Captain, are you mad? Do it. The ship turned, broken but burning. Engines flared with their last strength. The Ardent. Horizon charged straight at the alien warship. The crew stared in disbelief. Some screamed, some prayed. Lyrics's voice broke with desperation. Elias, you'll kill us all. Rourke bared his teeth. Better we go down fighting than get dragged into their graveyard. The distance closed. The alien ship's weapons glowed brighter. They were ready to obliterate the ardent horizon. In a single strike. And then the derelicts moved. The ancient wrecks, drifting for eons, suddenly surged to life. Their broken engines flared. Their shattered weapons spat sparks. They hurled themselves at the alien warship. One. Then another. Then dozens. The alien vessel staggered under the sudden assault of the dead. The crew of the ardent horizon froze in. Shock. Lyrics's voice trembled with awe. Impossible. The wrecks are fighting. On the bridge, Rourke's eyes narrowed. Not with fear, with fire. Not wrecks, he said. Prisoners. The void shook with battle, and in that chaos, the ardent horizon slipped free. The prison of Alij to the ardent horizon drifted on fumes. Hull torn. Systems failing. Fires choking the corridors. The crew was battered, bloodied, half broken. Yet somehow, still alive. The derelicts continued their suicidal charge against the alien warship. Fractured hulks rammed into its gleaming hull. Ancient weapons sputtering like dying stars, but still striking true. Sparks and shockwaves tore across the void. The colossal ship shuddered under the assault, but it did not fall. It turned its wrath upon the derelicts, unleashing lances of searing light that ripped them apart one by one. And yet, for every wreck destroyed, another rose. The graveyard was not empty. It was full of sleepers awakening. Rourke watched it all through the cracked viewport, jaw clenched. His body ached with exhaustion, but his eyes still burned with that same iron fire. Helm, he rasped, voice rough from smoke. Get us clear. The reptilian pilot coughed, scales slick with blood. Captain, engines barely respond. Then, make them respond. The ship groaned, pushing through the chaos. Behind them, the glowing sea writhed, furious tendrils lashing upward. Ahead, the alien warship staggered under the tide of derelicts. For a moment, just a heartbeat, it looked like the ardent horizon might escape. Then the light changed. The void around them rippled. The alien warship pulsed, releasing a wave. That swept through the wrecks. One by one, they froze mid-charge, as though strings had been cut. Their weapons dimmed. Their engines died. The battle was over. The derelicts drifted lifeless once more, and the alien warship turned its gaze back. To the humans. Captain, Lyrics whispered, her crystalline skin cracked and dull. We cannot fight again. Not now. Not ever. Rourke said nothing. He already knew. The alien ship loomed closer. Its weapons glowed. But this time, it did not fire. Instead, The voice thundered again in their skulls. The trespasser is claimed. The trespasser must be contained. The light engulfed them. When Rourke woke, it was no ship dot. He lay on cold stone, the surface smooth and faintly glowing. The air was heavy, pressing against his chest, thick with energy that made his skin itch. He sat up, groaning. Around him, members of his crew stirred. The pilot, the technician. Lyrics, her crystalline form flickering faintly like a dying flame. They were not in the ardent horizon. They were inside the construct. Asterisk. A vast chamber stretched out around them. The walls were alive with flowing light, rivers of brilliance that pulsed like veins. In the center of the chamber hung a sphere, massive, rotating slowly, carved with symbols that shifted too quickly to read. And around it? Cages. Not metal cages, but prisons of energy, each holding figures within. Dozens of them, some tall and insectoid, some massive and furred, some fragile and bird-like, all alien, all silent. All prisoners. The crew stared in horror. The pilot hissed, under his breath, "So many gods? There must be hundreds." Lyrics's light dimmed to a faint glow. Not just hundreds, thousands. Look above. They craned their necks. The chamber stretched upward farther than sight. Cages stacked layer upon layer into infinity. An eternal prison. Rourke clenched his fists. His scars ached. His stomach twisted. He'd seen prison camps before, run by alien warlords during the border wars. But this was no camp. This was a vault. And then one of the cages stirred. A figure pressed against its wall, thin, skeletal, eyes like burning coals. Its voice was a whisper that slid into their minds. "You are new, fresh. You should not have come." The crew flinched. Rourke stepped forward, jaw tight. "Who are you?" The prisoner's grin was wide and cracked. "Who are we? We are the forgotten, the ones who dared, the ones who crossed, and now the ones who wrought." More cages stirred, more voices. Some cried, some laughed, some muttered words in tongues long dead. Lyrics clutched her chest, trembling. "Elias, these are the ships that vanished. Every soul that ever tried to break the barrier." The technician's face was pale. "They never died. They were locked away." The skeletal prisoner laughed, hollow and broken. "Locked until the stars themselves die. That is the chain's law." The alien voice thundered suddenly, filling the chamber, silencing all the whispers. "Trespassers are contained. Trespassers cannot be released. Trespassers are corruption." The light flared. Energy wrapped around Rourke's crew, lifting them off the ground. They struggled, screamed, fought, but the force was unyielding. Rourke's teeth clenched as the light pulled him upward, toward a cage forming from the air itself. But then a blast tore through the chamber. The walls shook. The light rivers flickered. Cages sparked and dimmed. A hole ripped open in the side of the chamber, and figures poured through. Prisoners, armed. Weapons cobbled from scraps of wreckage. Armor made of broken hulls. Eyes burning with fury, they fired into the chamber, tearing the energy flows apart. The cages cracked. Prisoners spilled free, screaming in defiance. The skeletal alien grinned wide, its eyes blazing. The lost still fight. Rourke fell to the floor hard. Air knocked from his lungs. He coughed, staggered, and grabbed the technician by the arm. Lyrics was already on her feet, light flickering brighter with sudden fire. "Elias, this is a revolt." The chamber shook with battle. Prisoners swarmed, energy flared, voices screamed in alien fury. And through the chaos, one of the rebels rushed toward them. It was tall, plated with jagged chitin, 4 arms gripping scavenged rifles. Its mandibles clicked as it barked words. In broken trade tongue, You are new. You are free. Come fight or die where you stand. Rourke didn't hesitate. He grabbed a fallen rifle from the floor, its shape unfamiliar, but its trigger all too familiar. He looked at his crew, their eyes wide with fear and hope all tangled together. On your feet, he barked. We're not prisoners. Not today. And with that, the humans joined the revolt. The alliance of the LOST. Chamber was chaos.light, pulsed and shattered as rebels poured fire into the glowing walls. Explosions tore open cages. Energy bolts scorched the air. Screams of freedom and death echoed together. Rourke ducked as a bolt whined past his head, striking the stone and sending cracks spidering through it. Smoke filled his lungs. Heat pressed against his face, but he didn't falter. He had fought in trenches of burning mud, in boarding corridors slick with blood. This was nothing new. He fired the scavenged rifle. The alien weapon spat shards of blazing plasma. One of the construct's guardians, a tall figure of shimmering energy, collapsed in a burst of light. Captain! Lyric's voice rang. Sharp, she stood behind him, crystalline body glowing brighter now, cracks knitting faintly as though fire itself revived her. We cannot hold here. The guardians will converge. Rourke's eyes swept the chaos. She was right. For every cage that cracked, for every prisoner freed, more guardians poured in. Towers of light, faceless, merciless, their weapons bending reality with each strike. But then the chitin-plated rebel, who had spoken before, grabbed Rourke's arm. Its mandibles clicked in urgency. Not here. Follow. Come. Rourke glanced at his crew. The pilot was limping but alive, clutching a stolen blade. The technician's face was streaked with ash, but his hand still clutched a toolkit tighter than any rifle. Lyrics glowed with determination. They had a choice. Stand and die, or follow the rebels. Rourke made it without hesitation. Move! The rebels carved a path through the chaos, blasting open a breach in the chamber wall. Beyond it stretched tunnels, glowing veins of light that pulsed with strange energy. The crew and the rebels plunged inside. The tunnel closed behind them, sealing the chamber away in silence. For the first time since breaching the barrier, Rourke felt a breath of relief, but it did not last. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs shook. The tunnels twisted endlessly, some sloping upward, others plunging into depths where the glow dimmed. At last, the rebels stopped. They opened a hidden panel in the wall, crude, clearly carved by hand, and ushered the humans inside. It led to a cavern. Not a chamber of light. Not smooth, perfect architecture. This place was jagged, broken, raw. The walls were patched with scraps of metal from old wrecks. Fires burned in crude barrels. Alien figures sat huddled around them, hundreds of them. Some were armored. Some were wounded. Some looked barely alive. This was not a prison cell. This was a camp. The rebel leader raised its forearms high, mandibles clicking. The camp stirred, turning toward the humans with wary eyes. Rourke's hand hovered near his rifle. He knew the look of desperate people. They could as easily turn on him as embrace him. The chitin rebel spoke in harsh, broken trade tone. I am Cathar. I lead the unbound. We fight. We bleed. We still breathe. Lyrics stepped forward, crystalline glow shimmering faintly in the firelight. You are prisoners too. Cathar's mandibles clicked in bitter laughter. Prisoners? No. Cattle. The chain feeds on us. Breaks us. Uses us. He pointed one jagged claw at her. You saw the sea. The silent expanse. It drinks ships, drinks flesh. That is where the lost go. The crew shuddered. Rourke's jaw clenched. He remembered the tendrils, the derelicts dragged screaming beneath the glowing tide. He remembered the crew he'd ordered vented to save the ship. He pushed the thought down, burying it beneath iron. "Why are you still alive?" he asked. Kethar's burning eyes locked onto him. "Because we refuse to kneel. The chain cannot kill what it cannot cage. We strike. We flee. We hide. We strike again." Lyrics tilted her head. "How long?" Kethar's mandibles spread in a grim smile. 1,000 cycles. Perhaps more. Time means nothing here. The camp stirred with murmurs. Whispers passed among species Rourke had never seen. Insectoid, reptilian, avian, crystalline like Lyrics, but warped and broken. All eyes burned with the same thing. Desperation. Rourke's chest tightened. He knew this feeling. He'd seen it in war. Soldiers trapped behind enemy lines. Civilians waiting under bombardment. The eyes of people who had no hope left, but still clung to scraps of defiance. The technician whispered, voice shaking, "Captain, what do we do now?" Rourke looked at his crew, battered, scarred, alive only by chance, and he knew. "We fight," he said. The camp erupted in murmurs. Some laughed bitterly, some snarled, some stared in disbelief. Cathar tilted his head. "You are small, weak. Your ship is broken. You cannot fight." Rourke stepped forward, eyes burning. "Listen to me. Humanity has lived its whole history breaking chains. Every empire that tried to cage us fell. Every prison we were thrown into, we broke. You've survived 1,000 cycles waiting. I don't wait. I fight." The cavern went still. Lyrics' light shimmered brighter, voice resonant with quiet. "Strength. What he says is truth. I have seen humans do what no other species dares. If anyone can break this prison, it is them." The murmurs grew, whispers spreading like fire. Hope, dangerous hope. Cathar studied Rourke with burning eyes. Then, slowly, he extended one clawed hand. "Then fight with us. Become unbound." Rourke took the hand. His grip was iron. Done. For days, the humans lived among the unbound. They learned the truth of the prison. The chain, the builders, guardians, whatever they were, did not simply cage. They harvested. The silent expanse consumed energy, breaking ships into fuel. The prisoners themselves were tested, drained, their memories stolen. Those who resisted were thrown back into the sea. The unbound were those who had escaped capture. They carved tunnels, raided storage vaults, stole scraps of weapons. Every strike cost them lives. But every strike reminded the chain that resistance endured. And now they had humans. Rourke became a rallying point. His fire was strange to them, his stubborn refusal to yield alien. But it burned bright, and the lost who had been forgotten, for eons, hungered for light. The technician repaired scavenged weapons, his hands quick and clever. The pilot trained alongside avian warriors, learning to wield alien blades with deadly precision. Lyrics grew stronger. Her crystalline glow pulsed brighter, more steady, as though the fire of rebellion rekindled her. Yet she also grew quieter, as if something heavy pressed on her. One night, she stood with Rourke at the cavern's edge, staring at the glowing walls. "There is something you must know," she whispered. Rourke glanced at her. "What is it?" Her light dimmed. "My people, the Eleth, we have stories. Old stories. Of the first ones, the builders of chains. My ancestors were servants, guides. We were meant to help keep the barrier sealed." Rourke's chest tightened. "You knew?" "No." Her voice cracked like a bell breaking. "We forgot. Time buried it. But here, I remember. The chain sings to me, and I fear I am part of it." Rourke's hand gripped her shoulder. Hard, solid. "You're not the chain," he said firmly. "You're here, fighting, That makes you one of us. Her light trembled, then steadied. Perhaps. She whispered. The next raid came sooner than expected. Cathar gathered the rebels. His mandibles clicked with sharp fury. We strike at the core tonight. Storage vault. Energy cells. Weapons. If we succeed, we arm the Unbound for cycles too. Come. He looked at Rourke. You will lead the breach. Rourke nodded once. No hesitation. But as they prepared, Lyric's voice echoed in his mind, low and trembling. Elias! There is something in that vault. Something worse than you imagine. Rourke frowned. What? She looked away, her crystalline glow faint. The chain does not simply harvest. It creates. And in that vault lies the proof. Before he could press her, the alarm shrieked. Guardians. The tunnels shook with light. The prison itself was waking. The raid had begun before it even started. Asterisk the forge of Anaiji to Ariz thee. Tunnels shook with thunder. Light seared down the walls as guardians poured into the labyrinth. Faceless towers of fire that bent reality with every step. The Unbound scattered into their squads, weapons primed, mandibles clattering, wings flaring, claws flashing. And at the spear point of it all was Rourke. The human captain slammed afresh, cell into the alien rifle, and barked over the noise. Stay tight. Hit fast. Hit hard. Don't stop moving. The pilot grinned through blood and ash, clutching two curved alien blades. The technician tightened straps on his pack, tools clinking, eyes wide but steady. Lyrics glowed dimmer than before, her crystalline body trembling with some hidden weight. But she followed without question. Cathar raised all forearms high, mandibles clicking. For the Unbound, for freedom. The cavern roared with the cries of the damned. And they charged. The assault on the core was madness. Tunnels lit with fire. Guardians fell in bursts of brilliance, but each one cost lives. Alien warriors were torn apart by beams that sliced through flesh and stone alike. The walls themselves shifted, as though the prison sought to crush them in its depths. But the rebels pressed on, screaming their defiance. Rourke led them like he'd led soldiers years ago, never at the rear, always at the front, carving paths. With fury and grit. At last, they reached it. The core chamber was vast, a cathedral of light and shadow, its walls lined with vaults of black metal veined in burning red. In the center rose a colossal forge, a machine that pulsed like a living heart. Streams of glowing energy flowed into it, twisting and reshaping matter with every beat. It wasn't just a prison. It was a factory. Rourke's breath caught. Inside transparent chambers lining the forge, shapes writhed. Some were mechanical, some organic, some neither. Twisted amalgamations of species fused with alien metal. Creatures born from flesh and circuit, screaming without sound. Their forms warped into weapons. The chain wasn't just caging prisoners. It was remaking them. Cathar froze, mandibles spread wide in horror. By the void, Lyrics staggered, light flaring painfully bright. "I warned you," she whispered, voice cracking. "The chain does not simply harvest. It creates. It takes what we are, and forges monsters." The technician gagged, hand over his mouth. "Captain, those things, they're alive." Rourke's face hardened into stone. His rifle trembled in his hands, not from fear, from rage. Not for long. He raised the weapon, but Lyrics grabbed his arm. Her crystalline hand burned with heat. "No, Elias, you don't understand. These are not only prisoners. They are templates. The chain uses them to learn, to evolve. If we destroy them carelessly, we may trigger a purge, and it will burn us all." As if on cue, the forge roared. The guardians surged from the walls. Dozens, hundreds. Their faceless glow blazed. Weapons raised in perfect unison. Asterisk Cathar shouted. It was a trap. The chamber shook as the vault doors began to open, releasing things from within. Twisted hybrid creatures, half-formed but already monstrous. Claws of steel. Eyes burning with unnatural fire. The chain had unleashed its experiments. Chaos ignited. The Unbound fired wildly, tearing into both guardians and abominations. Plasma bolts lit the chamber like a storm. Explosions sent shards of stone and crystal. Raining, Rourke's rifle overheated, its barrel glowing red. He tossed it aside, drew a jagged alien blade from the ground, and hurled himself into the melee. The pilot was a blur, blades flashing, carving through twisted creatures with feral precision. The technician used his tools as weapons, jamming, sparking rods into guardian joints, disabling them with bursts of stolen electricity. Lyrics fought differently. Her crystalline form pulsed with bursts of light, projecting waves that shattered the construct's stability. But every flare dimmed. Her more, cracks spidering along her arms and chest. Lyrics! Rourke shouted, cutting down a hybrid beast that lunged for her. Don't burn yourself out. She looked at him, light flickering. There is no other way. The forge roared again. One of the vaults split wide, and a monstrosity stepped forth. It was larger than the rest, plated in black armor veined with molten red. Its head was a warped skull of some long-dead reptilian race, its body fused with machine limbs bristling with weapons. It raised one colossal arm and fired a beam that cut through a dozen rebels in a single sweep. The Unbound screamed in fury and fear. Cathar charged it, all four arms swinging his jagged blades. The monster caught him mid-strike, its steel claw, crushing his torso. Cathar roared once, a sound that shook the chamber, before the monster snapped him in half. No! The cry tore from Rourke's throat before he knew it. Rage blazed hotter than any fear. He hurled himself at the monster, blade raised, screaming with the voice of every soldier he'd lost, every comrade left behind. His blade struck sparks against its armored hide. The monster backhanded him, sending him crashing into the forge. Wall. Pain ripped through his body. Bones cracked. Breath left him in a ragged wheeze, but he forced himself up. Spitting blood, he snarled through clenched teeth. I'm not done yet. It was Lyrics who saved them. Asterisk, she stepped forward, light blazing brighter than ever before, her body cracking under the force. Elias! Strike the conduit. Rourke staggered, blinking through blood. What? The conduit! She screamed, pointing to a glowing artery of energy that fed the forge. He saw it. A massive channel of pulsing light, thick as a tree trunk, glowing with the power of thousands of harvested lives. With the last of his strength, Rourke staggered to it. He jammed the alien blade into the conduit and twisted with a roar. The world exploded. The conduit burst, energy screaming in wild arcs. The forge howled like a beast. The monster reeled, its body tearing apart as the stream of stolen power reversed in a violent surge. Guardians flickered and collapsed. Vaults shattered. The hybrids shrieked, their forms unraveling into ash and sparks. Asterisk, the chamber collapsed around them, walls breaking apart in showers of molten stone. Lyrics staggered, her body a blaze of cracks and fractures. She caught Rourke. Before he fell, her light dimmed to a trembling ember. We must go. The Unbound fled, dragging the wounded, leaving only corpses and rubble behind. They escaped back into the tunnels, half their number gone. The camp was silent when they returned. The rebels bowed their heads, mourning their leader. Cathar was gone. Asterisk. The technician whispered hoarsely, "We can't win, Captain. Not against this. We're ants kicking a god." Rourke sat in the firelight, blood crusted on his skin, eyes hollow but burning. Maybe, but ants can still bite. Lyrics lowered. Herself beside him, light faint but steady. Her voice was barely a whisper. The forge was only one. There are more. Dozens, perhaps hundreds. The chain is building an army. Rourke's fists clenched. Then we burned them all. Silence followed. The unbound watched him. Broken, bloodied, human, but still burning. And in their eyes, the fire spread. But in the deepest tunnels, unseen, something stirred. A fragment of the forge. A shard of its black heart, still pulsing with molten red dot, it quivered. It grew dot, and it whispered in a voice not meant for flesh. Human. Asterisk the final Biag, the tunnels were colder now. The fires of rebellion still burned. But half their warriors were gone. Their leader dead, their hope hanging by a thread. The unbound whispered Kether-E's name in mourning songs. The humans sat. Apart, weapons on their knees, staring into nothing. Rourke didn't speak for a long time. But when he did, his voice was like iron dragged across stone. We're not done. The pilot spat blood and laughed bitterly. We're bleeding out. Captain, we've lost too many. We hit one forge, and there's 100 more. We can't win. No, Rourke said, lifting his eyes. They burned with something deeper than fury. We can't fight them all, but we can end this. The technician shook his head, exhausted. End it? Captain, this isn't a base. It's the chain. It runs through the whole galaxy. Exactly. Rourke leaned forward, stabbing his finger into the dirt. We cut its throat here. We don't have to smash every forge. We bring the whole damned prison down. The camp went silent. Even the rebels stopped whispering. Lyrics' cracked body shifted, her voice soft but sharp. Elias, do you mean collapse the core itself? That's right. His voice was steady, cold, absolute. We turned this cage into its own coffin. A hush followed. The idea was madness dot, and yet, as the silence stretched, heads began to nod dot, because madness was all they had left. The plan formed in the ashes of despair. Unbound knew the tunnels, every vein and fracture of the prison's underworld. The humans knew demolition, soldiers, engineers, pilots. Together, they pieced the impossible dot. At the center of the chain's prison world lay its anchor. A gravitational heart, a singularity bound in chains of living matter and machine. It kept the prison stable, fed the forges with power, and linked every guardian together dot. If they shattered it, the whole structure would collapse. But to reach it meant cutting through the deepest defenses the chain possessed dot. No one expected to survive. None of them hesitated. The march to the core was a death march. The tunnels howled with alarms. Guardians poured from every direction, faceless legions wielding light as weapon and shield. Hybrids hunted them, shrieking abominations made from stolen flesh and steel. The rebels fought like the damned. The humans fought like devils. Rourke's voice cut through the chaos. Forward, don't stop. Every step counts. Bodies fell. The pilot's blades dripped with alien ichor. The technician fired scavenged rifles until his arms went numb. Lyrics burned herself brighter with every wave, her fractured form shattering guardians in pulses of raw light. Step by step, they carved a path, until at last they stood before it. The core dot, it was a pit, a chasm of endless dark, ridged by towers, of writhing metal and stone. Chains thicker than warships stretched into the abyss, glowing with rivers of stolen power. At the center hovered the singularity, a point of infinite black, wrapped in a cage of light and circuitry. The heart of awe. The prison. And it was awake dot as they entered. The walls shook with a voice that was not a voice. It pressed into their skulls, filled their lungs, boiled their blood. You are nothing. You are pieces of dust clinging to fire. You cannot break what was before your kind learned to crawl. The unbound staggered. Some fell to their knees, clawing. At their heads, Rourke stood. Blood streamed from his nose. His voice cracked with pain, but it was steady. "Shut up." The core trembled. "You are weak. You are fragile. You will kneel, as all things kneel." Rourke spat into the pit. "Humanity doesn't kneel. Not to kings. Not to gods. Not to chains." The unbound raised their heads. For the first time, they saw the thing that had bound them not as a master, but as something that could bleed. The battle for the core erupted. Guardians poured in endless waves. Hybrids tore from the walls, screaming. The rebels met them head-on. The pilot fell first. A beam tore through his chest. He laughed as he fell, still swinging his blades until the last breath. The technician was next. He overloaded a captured cannon, holding it until it detonated in a sunburst that vaporized dozens of guardians and himself. The unbound roared their grief, fighting harder, tearing their oppressors apart with claw and fang and fire. And still, the waves kept coming. Lyric staggered to Rourke's side. Her crystalline body was shattered, barely holding together. "Elias, the heart must be struck directly. But it is bound too tight. I cannot reach it." "Yes, you can." She looked at him, her light flickering. "It will kill me." His voice broke. "I know." She smiled, a faint shimmer of fractured light. "Then it is a good death." Before he could stop her, she leapt into the abyss. Her body flared brighter than a sun. She became pure brilliance, streaming into the chains, tearing them apart with waves of searing light. The core screamed. Rourke staggered forward, raising his last weapon, a scavenged charge pack wired by the technician before his death. He hurled it into the heart of the abyss. The singularity swallowed it whole. For a breath, nothing happened. Then the world broke. The core imploded, chains snapping like thunder. The abyss collapsed, tearing the prison apart from within. Guardians flickered and fell. Hybrids unraveled into dust. The very walls split open, stone and fire crashing down. The prison was dying. Rourke roared to the rebels, voice raw. "Run!" They fled through collapsing tunnels, chased by fire and screaming void. At last, they reached the surface. The sky was splitting. The prison world cracked apart, chunks of land floating into the void. The stars blazed beyond, free and terrible. Unbound scrambled aboard captured skiffs, engines screaming to life. Rourke climbed into one last craft, hands bleeding on the controls. As the world collapsed into itself, they soared free. Behind them, the prison folded inward, sucked into the collapsing singularity, until nothing remained but dust and silence. Chain had lost a world. They drifted in space, battered, broken, but alive. The unbound gathered around Rourke, eyes burning with something they had not felt in centuries. "Hope, you are one," an alien whispered. "One human, yet you broke the unbreakable." Rourke sat slumped in the cockpit, staring at the stars. His voice was quiet, ragged. "I didn't do it alone." He closed his eyes, seeing Lyric's last smile, hearing Kethar's roar. The laughter of the pilot, the courage of the technician. All of them gone, but not forgotten. The galaxy would remember. And somewhere, out in the dark, the chain still lived. But now it knew something it had never known. Before, humanity had broken its barrier, and it would never be the same. EPILOGU weeks later, far beyond the ruins of the prison world, a fragment of black metal drifted in the void. It pulsed with red. Light. And in the silence of space, it whispered. Human. "We will meet again. Asterisk.